Hello and welcome back to the next episode of VGC Guides, the show where I break down how to use the new Paldean Pokemon so you don't have to. I'm Zach and I upload competitive Pokemon Scarlet and Violet content every single day, so if that's something you're into, you should consider subscribing. I'm really trying to grow this channel to 100 subs by the end of the year. Now before I go any further, go ahead and go down to the comments and let me know which Pokemon you want to see next in this series. And for today's video, we're talking about the land whale Cetitan. This Pokemon was another fan favorite during the release trailers, so let's see if this Pokemon has the strengths to live up to its pre-release popularity. So I was going to record without the headphones today because I don't play music through them and I don't have a playback of my own personal voice going through them as I'm recording. I've tried that and I can't talk over it, so I don't really see a point to wearing the headphones, but then I tried to record without them and it felt weird, so I didn't like it and I deleted the recording halfway through. So yeah, Cetitan, pure ice type, right? Historically ice type hasn't been very good. Just in general, ice type moves themselves are very good, they're very spammable, and freezing a Pokemon is oftentimes a death sentence. But ice type Pokemon in general have not been very good historically. We've had a few notable appearances of ice types. I know in 2017, Alola Ninetales was good, or back in the Black and White, I think Weavile was pretty good. I know in the 2020-2021 era, Vanillux saw some usage. It never really took off, but it did see some usage. So in general, ice types have not been very good. And part of that just comes from the fact that they are historically have been somewhat weak Pokemon, and they have a lot of defensive holes, right? If we look at it, you have a weakness to fire, you have a weakness to fighting, you have a weakness to rock, and you have a weakness to steel. Rock, with rock slide spam everywhere, steel type moves have always been great. Metagross has always been a thing. Fire type moves are also very spammable in VGC, and burn chance is really huge. And for a brief period of time, fighting types were even really good in VGC. So it's been a very hostile environment for ice types, and a lot of the times they just don't really have any redeeming qualities. Their move pools are usually pretty shallow. Their stabs usually hit pretty weak. The most notable ice type stab that we have is Ice Beam and Blizzard is inaccurate, and Ice Beam is good. You see a lot of Pokemon on Ice Beam that aren't even ice types, right? And on the physical side of things, we've basically had Ice Shard, which is a 40 base power priority move, and Icicle Crash, which is inaccurate, right? There's probably other ice type moves that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but for the most part, that's about all we've had for ice type moves. We also, don't get me wrong, we have Icy Wind for speed control as well, which also saw use. But in general, a lot of the ice type moves, especially the special ice type moves, have not been used on ice type Pokemon. They've been used on primarily water type Pokemon, but there are exceptions, right? Now, offensively, ice type moves are a great move, right? You have super effective damage into grass types, ground types, flying types. I feel like there's more than that, but I think that's... Oh, and dragon types. So, offensively, you hit ground types pretty well, which has been really great for, Lando T. I know, back in the day, Landorus T would often run, Hidden Power Ice just to check other Landorus Therians. So, I mean, it's a very great offensive type, very spammable, and again, Ice Beam, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I will learn how to type one of these days. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, actually. I'll look at it later. But I know Ice Beam's freeze chance has always been pretty good. Freezing a Mon oftentimes neuters it for the rest of the match. So, good offensively, bad defensively, just been bad in general throughout the history, right? Ice types. Now let's talk about this thing's abilities, right? Now I personally think this is one of the really rare times when all of a Pokemon's abilities are quite usable, right? First, you have Thick Fat, where your fire and ice type moves deal 50% damage. This means you're essentially not weak to fire as a Titan, and then you could even Terra into a type that's weak to ice and no longer be weak to ice or fire. So Terra Grass Cetitan is no longer weak to fire or ice. It just takes neutral from them. Or you could stay an ice type and take half from ice, or you could Terra into a water type and take basically zero, take a quarter damage from fire and ice type moves. Next is Slush Rush, and there's been a few Pokemon in the past with Slush Rush, or a few Pokemon that have had Slush Rush in the past. Most notably, I think Beartic got it, and then Alolan Sandslash got it. Unfortunately, those two Pokemon didn't really have the redeeming qualities to make them very fast Slush Rush users because they were both very slow in general. And so you'd still get outsped by a lot of fast Pokemon at their natural speeds. The last ability I want to talk about is Sheer Force. Now, Sheer Force is a move that does see some usage every so often. A lot of good Pokemon get it. I know Landorus Incarnate got it. I think that's the reason it actually has banned in like 6v6 singles for so long is because like Sheer Force Life Orb was insane. For those of you that don't know, like Sheer Force moves with your secondary effect are increased in power by 30%, but lose their secondary effect. And so a secondary effect would fall into the category of something like bounce or body slam has like a 30% chance to leave them with paralysis. That's a secondary effect. Ice Spinner would destroy terrain. That's a secondary effect. And so it loses the secondary effect but gains 30% power. And this is stackable with Life Orb because if the Pokemon using Sheer Force uses a move that has a secondary effect, you keep the boost, like the damage boost from Life Orb, but lose the 10% recoil. So it made it very potent for like Sheer Force Pokemon because they get a 30% boost from Sheer Force and then a 30% boost from Life Orb without taking recoil, right? So now let's go over this thing's stats because they're kind of actually impressive. So first of all, we have 170 base HP. That's quite huge, right? That's a lot of HP. At level 50, you're clocking in at 277 HP. If you're like max invested, right? Even if you're like minimally invested, I'm not sure what it comes out to be. I can look. Even if you're minimally invested, it's still 245 HP. And I kind of brought this up with the Team Blue video. You can invest a very small amount of HP and turn Seismic Toss into a 6-hit KO. So next, we have its defenses, right? 65 base defense and 55 base special defense really isn't all that great. That's quite low. However, with a base HP set of 170, you kind of make up for it. Like, we all remember how Blissey and Chansey have literally no physical defense, but a massive HP stat, and so a lot of the times you'll still end up living really strong physical attacks. This is kind of the reasons, because the HP does makes up for a lot of it, right? Next is the 113 attack. Like, that's pretty respectable. Like, 113 attack is definitely good. I think, like, for an offensive mon, the absolute minimum that you would want is like 100, and that's pushing it. 113 is very doable, especially when you consider that you have like sheer force boosts, or like, yeah, especially when you consider that you have like sheer force boosts or some of the boosting moves that this Pokemon has. Next is that 73 speed, and that's kind of like, I talked about this in, I think, the Houndstone video, where it's in that range where it works really well at double speed, 125 speed, maxed out with a neutral nature, or 137 with beneficial nature at max is definitely very, very good for like fast teams, or you could run it with like no speed investment and run 78, so that under like double speed, you're still faster than a lot of things, but you're still slower than a lot of things under Trick Room. So it could be, it's a very versatile speed stat that can work well on both Trick Room and Tailwind / like in the Sludge Rush case, like Snow, right? So let's talk about this thing's moves. One second. So the first move I want to talk about is like Ice Shard, right? Priority moves, especially like at an earlier point in the season when everything is very offensive. And in VGC in general, priority moves have been very good. Being able to knock something down to a sash and then kill it before it can attack, or pick up that last little bit of chip damage at the end of the battle when they're not expecting it, it's very good, right? So Ice Shard with Stab is a very good move. Next you have Body Slam. I don't see this being used very much. Now I want to talk about Ice Spinner. Ice Spinner, 80 base power Ice type move, so it's 5 base power weaker than Icicle Crash, but it's perfectly accurate. And then this move works a lot like Steel Roller worked in Sword and Shield, where if there's a terrain, it destroys the terrain. However, unlike Steel Roller, Ice Spinner does not require a terrain to work, whereas Steel Roller did, right? So you sacrifice a little bit of base power compared to Steel Roller, 40 base power I think, with the benefit of being able to use it whenever you want to. And then a lot of the times that 5 base power decrease from Ice Spinner to Icicle Crash doesn't make the difference in a lot of calcs. So in general, this is just a lot better move. A lot better of a move than Icicle Crash when you compare like the risk versus reward to using this versus Icicle Crash. Next, you have your Bulldoze and Icy Wind for like your speed controls that you would use on like your Slush Rush teams. Very good. Bulldoze to hit both Pokemon guaranteed. Icy Wind if you don't want to bother trying to play around your own Pokemon's protects. You do get Snowscape so that you can like self-enable yourself. I don't see this being used very much in general. Like enabling your own weather in VGC has typically not been as effective. I know that like Murkrow using Sunny Day right now is a different thing, but that's because Murkrow is enabling something else with its move, whereas this requires a turn 2 be enabled if you're enabling it yourself, right? Also, I want to talk about this. The snow weather boosts the defense of ice types, which also makes this thing's physical defense a little bit more manageable. I think it's a 1.5 times boost the same way sand boosts the special defense of rock types. This snow boosts the physical defense of ice types, right? So if you're running this on Snow Team, it makes the defense actually a lot more bearable. Where was I? You do Ice Punch. Again, I don't see this being used over Ice Spinner. You get Stomping Tantrum as well, which is really meaningful ground coverage, and for the first time we have a Pokemon that gets Body Press that probably won't use it. I could see this being used on like maybe Snow Teams, but I don't see it being used very often. You do get Heavy Slam, you're a heavy enough Pokemon to where this is notable stab. You do get Liquidation as well. I actually think I skipped over that when I was looking over this the first time, but you do get Liquidation as well. You get Play Rough to hit Dark types, Dragon types, Fighting types, etc. You get Earthquake, stronger Bulldoze, or equal damage to like Stomping Tantrum basically, right? And then as far as the egg move goes, there's two really important egg moves I want to talk about. First is Superpower, just really great like fighting stab. Yes, you lower your attack and your defense. If you're playing on a Snow Team, you're technically neutralizing your defense that way. And then you get Belly Drum, which is why I think Superpower was actually a very usable move on this Pokemon. You get Belly Drum, cut your HP in half, you maximize your attack, which means you can use Superpower multiple times after that and still have a strong attack set, right? That's kind of the benefit of these two moves. And then down here you get Icicle Crash. I mentioned that you could use Icicle Crash, but I think it's just Ice Spinner is, in general, a lot better move. Oh, it's right here. I talked about this earlier. Ice Beam is a 10% chance to freeze, just because I referenced that earlier and I didn't realize this was a thing. So that's the Titan's move pool. A very good move pool. I think it's very like not necessarily one-dimensional, but there's a lot of different moves you could run. A lot of different moves you could run. Most moves you probably won't run. So the potential sets I want to talk about. The first one is like a Trick Room tanky attacker, where you run. Realistically, you can run any item you want to here. The idea is that you're running. I actually personally on this set, I think I would do Clear Amulet and a Thick Fat because you're running a Trick Room with Protect, Ice Spinner. Well, yeah, Ice Shard, then Ice Spinner, and then like a third move of your choice. You could even run like Belly Drum on this set. You have Belly Drum on this set. If you're running Belly Drum on this set, I would recommend switching out like Ice Shard for like Liquidation or something. I could see this being a set with Trick Room. Oof, I wish. Like I could very well see this being a set. You're not like incredibly slow, but you're not like fast either. You can even actually run like Iron Ball in this set and run 35 speed and actually be really slow. But in general, like you can run this Pokemon as like a tank. You can actually even run like split defenses on this set as well. Because if you anticipate that you're getting Belly Drum off to like maximize your attack, then you don't really necessarily need to invest. 133 at times 4, you're still clocking in at over like 500 stat. The next set I want to talk about is like a generic Slush Rush attacker, where you'd run your Protect, your Ice Spinner, either your Earthquake or your Superpower. Like I'd run Earthquake and then Liquidation on this set. Like this is what I would run on this set, and then you could run Clear Amulet, you could run Life Orb, you could even run like Choice Band on this set and then switch Protect out for like Superpower or Play Rough or Heavy Slam. Point is like on the all-out attacking sets, you have like a lot of variation that you can go for on the move sets. This should be this on the Slush Rush sets. Like you have a lot of variation that you can do on your all-out attacker sets. The next set I want to talk about is like a Sheer Force Scarf. So this works a lot the same way that like the Choice Band set does. It just doesn't require like a Pokemon to set up Snow for you, so you don't have to use the Obama Snow or the Slowking to set up Hail. The movesets are pretty much the same. Ice Spinner. If it turns out that Ice Spinner actually doesn't alleviate the terrain, or like Ice Spinner's ending terrain isn't a secondary effect, and you lose a sheer force boost on it, I would recommend Icicle Crash in that slot. I haven't run the test on that myself, so I don't necessarily know. But you run Ice Spinner, you run like your Play Rough, you run your Liquidation, because that gets sheer force boosted, and then like your Heavy Slam. You can switch these moves around, but I think Ice Spinner and Liquidation are going to be staples on a lot of movesets, just because of the coverage that Ice and Water give you. Obviously a set like this. The next set I want to talk about is like a Slush Rush setup, where you'd run like Citrus Berry. Oh, I should make a point of that here. If you're ever running Belly Drum on a set, you should probably be running Citrus Berry and then making sure that your HP is even. I have run into players who run like Belly Drum sets with an odd HP stat. They don't get the Citrus off, and then I kill them anyways. So if you're running Belly Drum, make sure that your HP stat is an even number. And then if you're running a Belly Drum set, just make sure to put a Citrus Berry on it, so you're at least at like 3/4 health as opposed to half. It helps with the survivability, right? So yeah, Citrus Berry, what did I say? Sheer Slush Rush setup. So Citrus Berry, Slush Rush, Protect, Icicle Crash, Liquidation, and then again a filler move of your choice. For the time being, I'm going to put Heavy Slam down because I think it's good coverage. And the last set I want to talk about is like Life Orb, Sheer Force, Tail Room, right? Life Orb, Sheer Force with Protect, Ice Spinner, Liquidation, and then ideally in the last slot you'd put a move that has a secondary effect. So I think Earthquake and Superpower in the slot are typically pretty bad ideas. I think Play Rough in the slot could work. Or again, you could even just run Ice Shark for, like this is the stuff that you could potentially run. And then you run it bulky so that under Trick Room or under Tailwind you're still faster than a lot of things, but against faster teams under Trick Room you are also still faster, right? So I think that's a Titan. Like the big 5 sets, like I think Slush Rush, well. Oh, okay. So on like the Slush Rush setups, you could run like Belly Drum. And then like for the last slot, you could choose between like a filler move or Protect. I guess I should have said that the first time. But in general, I just think that like the Slush Rush sets and then the Sheer Force sets are going to see a lot more usage than like Thick Fat is going to be. Just because Thick Fat is more of a defensive kind of archetype to this Pokemon, but it has really great offensive potential. And for the most part, I have actually seen this Pokemon going Terra Water when I've seen it online, or on ladder. And the reason you go Terra Water is because you have the bulk that after you've gone Terra Water, you can actually kind of stand up to Dondozo with the Tatsugiri buffs, right? Unfortunately, this thing doesn't get an Electric type move. I guess if you wanted to, you could run like Terra Electric, Belly Drum, Terra Blast, and like absolutely nuke Dondozo. I don't know what the calc looks like on that, but it'd be really funny to see. This is something you could run, but for the most part, I think Terra Water is a lot more consistent. You Terra into the Water type, and then you now resist all of Dondozo's attacks. So you resist Dondozo's Water type stabs, and then if it goes to Terra Ground, which I've seen Dondozo's do, you have Icicle Crash to beat it. So yeah, that's Cetitan. As a general overview, I think like I said, Terra Water is really solid. The Dozo check. There you go. Terra Water Cetitan is a really great Dondozo check because it prevents the Dondozo from going Terra Ground. And then if you're running like Icicle Crash, Earthquake even, against the Flambigo that's sitting right beside it, it discourages the Flambigo from going Terra Steel like they like to do. And then despite its low defenses, it has the ability to make itself very bulky. I don't remember where that set went. Oh, right here. Despite its low defenses, it has the ability to make itself very bulky. And I think it has the strength to be on like a variety of teams. I could see this Pokemon very well fulfilling like the Qian Pao role that a lot of teams were using. Qian Pao is one of the Treasures of Ruins Pokemon that is no longer usable because we can't use those in the current VGC format. So I see like the Scarf set being a very good Qian Pao replacement. And just because of its stabs and because of its ability, it feels very splashable and able to be put on a lot of teams if you just need like a physical attacker to patch a hole offensively. And then in general, I think the belly drum sets work. The belly drum sets work really well on like Slush Rush teams or Trick Room teams, just because you don't have to invest into your speed or your attack, and you can invest bulk, or you can invest what you would be investing into attack. You can invest elsewhere. So yeah, that's the Titan. That's about all I got. Like I said, very strong, very versatile Mon. It comes onto the field and you know what it's going to do, but it's also very versatile because it does have a few things that it can do, right? And a lot of the times you won't know until it does it. So yeah, that's all I got. Like I said, let me know if there's a Pokemon that you want to see next. I have a few ideas for what I can do, but I'm not necessarily running out of Pokemon that I can do. I'm definitely not running out of Pokemon that I can still do, but I'd like some input from my viewers just to, again, let me know what you want to see next. So that's all I got, and peace.